organized in June of 2013 and then began developing recipes, finding a supplier, building out the facility, putting the equipment together, learning how to drive it. Once we'd settled on our recipes, began production. Distribution started in October of 2013 through the low country area along the coast, and then statewide in January of 2014. Well, we have several products. We have our moonshine, and we have our vodka, which is made from the whiskey, unaged whiskey, the moonshine, and we have a rum product. Our corn is grown for us at a farm in Bowman, South Carolina. We get it delivered to us in 50-pound bags. We weigh the corn out. The recipe's not that difficult to follow. It's essentially a 2-to-1 sort of a recipe. It goes into a hopper that's back behind this false wall, and it's fed down through the hopper into our mill. We grind it into a flour. All that corn flour goes up through this big auger and is dumped into the 600-gallon mash tun. The process involves cooking it for about an hour and a half to bring up the temperature to around 180 degrees. And we put the first of 2 enzymes in there. It rests for an hour. We begin to drop the temperature to a resting point that's lower, about 150 degrees, and we introduce a second enzyme. So what we've done is, by exposing it to the first enzyme, we've taken that very complicated carbohydrate and we've broken up all the links in it so that they're a lot shorter chains. Now they're more susceptible to conversion from a starch to a sugar. The second enzyme at a lower temperature is what does the conversion. Okay. So by the time we've been here for about 6.5 hours going through this process of rests and heat, we have a very sweet tasting, very thin corn gruel that we will pump out after we drop the temperature down to about 100 degrees into these fermenters. So I have about 300 gallons in this one, and there's somewhere around 160 to 70 gallons in the short one here. We put our yeast in there. It's a specific yeast for the whiskey, and I'll show you what happens once it happens. So a lot of snap, crackle, pop type of activity going on, as you can tell. There's a reaction that's going on where the yeast cells are eating the sugar. And the result of that is the production of carbon dioxide, and that's causing all the bubbles to come out. Heat, and if you touch the outside of the fermenter, you can actually feel that exothermic reaction. And thirdly, you get alcohol. So the next step is to take that 300 gallons and put it in this 300-gallon still that's over here. So in the case of the whiskey, which is what we're talking about now, we'll put 300 gallons from one of the fermenters in here, and we do a process that's called stripping the alcohol. It turns out that we get about 55 gallons of somewhere between 70 and 80 proof alcohol. It's oily, it smells bad, you wouldn't want to drink it. So using my example, we'll take 2 of those 55-gallon drums, transfer the material in here, but this strip will then be finished into a whiskey at 160 proof. And we will pay very close attention to the position of things like these valves, because each of these valves controls a plate within that column. And we talked about it being a hybrid still. So for whiskey, I want to activate some of these plates because I want the final flavor profile to come across and taste like corn whiskey.
Okay.
For vodka, I don't want that much of it. I want it to be more neutral, as vodka should be. So the position of these plates allow us to do that. The alcohol vapors keep rising through. They come up to the top, they work their way across, and just like in the movies, we've got a worm in here, and we have a very cold combination of water and propylene glycol that circulates around that worm and turns that vapor back into liquid, and it comes out of the parrot. So the first section that comes off we call heads. It has methyl alcohol, it has acetone, it has other ketones in it, things that'll make your mama go blind if you drink it, right? And then we get to the hearts. And that's where we're starting to collect what's going to go in the bottles. We pay very close attention to those cuts from heads to hearts, and then we can relax for a little while takes probably 6 hours or so for that process to work its way through. We do that in individual 5-gallon buckets along the way so we don't make a mistake and get too much of the tails or too much of the heads. And then we can blend all 4 or 5 of those 5-gallon buckets together, and that gets bottled. We're in all of South Carolina right now. We're looking at Georgia, and we're looking at Florida, and we're looking at Washington, D.C., and New Jersey, and Illinois, and what's the other state? New York.